So first, tell me a little bit about yourself, your family.
Well, my dad is an immigrant from Cuba. He was born in Cuba, he grew up there, he actually fought in the revolution, and he was thrown in prison, he was tortured in Cuba, he was almost killed. And my grandfather bribed the prison guards to get him out. He fled Cuba, and he ended up coming to the United States. He was admitted at the University of Texas. So he arrived in the 1950s in Austin. He was 18 years old, he didn't speak a word of English, and he had $100 sewn into his underwear. And he went and got a job as a dishwasher, making 50 cents an hour. And he worked full time, and he paid his way through school, and he got a job and started a business and worked towards the American dream. And, you know, I've said many times, my dad is my hero. But what is so powerful and what so many Floridians will recognize is that his story is so utterly commonplace. It is the story of America, that we are a nation of people that have fled oppression and come here seeking liberty and opportunity. And that ultimately is why I'm running for Senate. My dad used to say to me all the time as a kid, when we faced oppression in Cuba, I had a place to flee to. If we lose our freedom here, where do we go? And that's why I'm running for Senate, is to fight to ensure we don't lose our freedom here.
First of all, tell us, how are you going to make it, because I feel that, hey, you need to make this not so much a state race, but a national race. What is your campaign prepared to do to make this a national race?
Well, I think you're exactly right, and in my judgment, we are at a national crossroads. Barack Obama is the most radical president ever to occupy the White House, and our liberties are being threatened from Washington like they never have before. In my opinion, we're facing the epic battle of our generation. Does this nation remain a free market economy? And we are seeing millions of Americans rise up and seek leadership to defend individual liberty, free market principles, and the Constitution. That's exactly why I'm running for U.S. Senate, is to defend our free market system and to fight the Obama agenda.
So you don't have any primary opponents as of yet?
Well, I do actually, and in Texas, the principal battle is the primary. There are currently 3 people in the race right now in addition to me. They're good people, they're friends of mine. But the theme of my campaign is 2 things. Number 1, new leadership. And I think Texans are hungry for new leaders that are not the incumbent establishment, but that are leaders that have real and true commitments to their principles. And number 2, a proven conservative record. And no one in the race has a comparable record of repeatedly standing up, defending conservative principles, and winning on a national level.
You had mentioned someone who may jump in the race has a pretty interesting nickname. Eric over at Red State had called him Duchrist.
Well, that has been said on the blogs, and I don't know if he'll get in the race or not. What I do know is that the voters of Texas and voters nationally, conservatives nationally, want real conservatives. I think the central issue in this race is going to be which candidate is best prepared to stand up and fight the Obama agenda. And none of the candidates, including the lieutenant governor who might get in, have a record of standing and fighting for conservative principles. Let me give you some examples, Javier. I served for 5.5 years as the Solicitor General of Texas, which is the chief lawyer for the state of Texas in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. During that time, Texas over and over again led the nation defending conservative principles. We defended the 10 Commandments monument that stands on the state capitol grounds. We took it to the U.S. Supreme Court and we won 5-4. We defended the Pledge of Allegiance. We went to the U.S. Supreme Court and we won unanimously. We defended the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. We went to the U.S. Supreme Court and we won 5-4. And most critically, in a case called Medellin versus Texas, we stood up to the World Court and to the United Nations. The World Court issued an order to the United States to reopen the convictions of 51 murderers across this country. I argued that case twice in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. On the other side were 90 nations and was the President of the United States. We stood up and defended U.S. sovereignty, and we won 6-3.
Who was that president? Was it Clinton or Obama?
It was actually President George W. Bush, who unfortunately listened to some poor advice from his advisors, and he signed an order that purported to order the state courts to obey the World Court. And so the question, we asked the Supreme Court to rule that the president lacks the constitutional authority to order the state courts to obey the world court, and the Supreme Court agreed with us 6-3.